So I think that this first question was very much like the ones from Math is Fun and from Khan Academy. So I didn't even say that we were going to do this one, but of course you can still do this one, and it is a multiple choice. This number 2, though, is the one that we're going to do. So number 2 is this style that's about directions again, where, excuse me, where we said that you might have to draw this out to really understand what shape you're creating, right? So it says Ms. Lang drove about 150 kilometers east from Le Sarre to Senetter, Quebec. She drove about another 75 kilometers north to, I don't even know how to say this one, La Belle Sourde, Kelvion. What is the approximate air distance from Le Sarre to La Belle Sourde, Quebec, right? So when they say something like this again, what is the approximate air distance? What they're saying, of course, if you're driving, like we talked about yesterday, you have to, or you're walking, you might have to go in a straight block length. So if you're driving, you have to follow the road, right? If you're flying, though, you can make that diagonal from point to point. So this is how you know that they only gave you 2 directions. So they said 150 east and 75 kilometers north. When they mention the other direction, that's the 3rd line, which is letting you know that you're doing a triangle. So did anyone have a chance to work that one out?
Oh, yeah.
Not yet? All right, so let's take 1 minute to work it out right now. You've got, maybe if you need to draw it out, you're remembering your directions, north, south. North is on the top, south is on the bottom, west is on the left, east is on the right. So you're gonna draw, and you can just put maybe Le Sarre, LS, however you're gonna do that, but she drove 150 kilometers east from one city, right? She drove another 75 kilometers north. So you're drawing that out for yourself. That east and north are going to be the legs of the triangle. So who remembers the Pythagorean Theorem formula? So you can shout it out.
Oh.
What is the actual formula that we're using? Just say the formula.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Exactly. So the 2 legs of the triangle are which ones?
A squared and B squared.
Yes. So all you're going to do is always start with the formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You're taking a look at the problem to decide what did they give you, the A, the B, or the C. So we're saying these 2 are the legs, and the air distance is the hypotenuse or the C. So take a minute to substitute the A and the B. And let's pull up a calculator. So if you have your 150 squared, 75 squared equals C squared, you can just say 150. I'm just using this Google calculator. So you're going to do the squaring first to get the 22,500. Then you have the 75. And you're adding those 2 up in the formula.
Oh.
And so now you have
Okay.
28,125 equals C squared. So what do you have to do now?
You got to divide by 2.
Not divide by 2.
The square, is it the square symbol and 28, 125?
Yes. Yep. So you're going to use this square root symbol, which you're finding the number that is multiplied by itself. So you're gonna use the square root symbol first in this calculator, but of course you have to know which kind of calculator you're using, right? Because we've used a couple different ones. Now you're typing in the number that you added up, and you've got 167.70. So when you come back to this, you're looking at A is 160, B is 168, C is 175, and D is 225. So which one would you pick? B, right? So now this is where you're saying, the reason why we're picking this one is to look at the multiple choice style, right? So it's rounded up a little bit to 168, but that's the one that you're gonna pick because you were able to label the A and the B as the two directions that she drove. So any questions about number 2? Okay, let's take a look at another one. So we said number 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's take a look at number 6. So I'm showing number 6 on the screen. It says, what is the measure of the hypotenuse? So this is one of the ones that we were talking about where you might have to use a combination of your formulas. So we already did square and rectangle, perimeter and area, and we did triangle, perimeter and area, and now we're on the Pythagorean theorem, sticking with the triangle. So when you see something like this one, you are looking at the information that they gave you. So it says, what is the measure of the hypotenuse? That's where the question mark is. This is the diagonal, or the longest side of the triangle, but you don't have the information for another leg of the triangle. So how would you get this information about the length of this leg of the triangle? Anybody have any ideas?
I'm stuck.
So what is the number on the left anyways?
So this one says, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay, so this one says it's a square, and how do you know it's a square? They've got the one line here, like we saw before on Math is Fun, and then they have another line right here. That's letting you know that these two are equal. So you remember when we saw the rectangle, it had one kind of dash here, but then it had two dashes on the other side. Then it had one here, and then it had two dashes on this side. That's showing that two different the sides are equal. So in this case, this is giving you the definition of a square by showing you that there's one line here, and showing you that each one of these is a right angle inside the internal angles of the shape. So what you can say is that's the rule of a square again. So does everybody remember that from Math is Fun?
Yes.
I heard one yes. Was that Bernie? I have to memorize your voices now because I've minimized to the video. So this is, let me just go to it really quickly. We've done all of these shapes so far, but if I click on the square, this is what you're writing on your index cards. This is the rule of the square, where you have right angle, right angle, right angle, right angle, and you have equal sides. So even though sometimes you're looking at something, it might not be saying there's a square and a triangle, but you have to go by the rules. So here it's saying A equals 441 meters squared. So this A is standing for the area. So how would you find out the length of a side from knowing the area?
You have to divide.
It's kind of like dividing, right? So what is the formula for finding out the area of a square?
Is it half height?
So area equals
Based on height.
length times a height, right? But in a square, because they're the same, let's scroll down and look.
The perimeter.
It's squaring again. So if you can see on the screen right now, because all the sides are the same, you're thinking about the side squared. is the area. That would be the length times the height because the number is the same. So like this one that says 6 times 6, that's going to give you 36. Finding the area is either squaring and then dividing by 2. So I heard someone did say divide, or you can just use the square root key on your calculator again. So let's take a look at this one. It says area equals 441 square meters. So this is the length times the width, or the side squared is 441. So in order to figure out what the side must have been, you can just find the square root of 441. So is everybody following that so far?
21.
Perfect. So I see someone got the answer. You're putting in square root 441 and you get 21. Now, when you do that, that means that's the length of the side. So now you know that this one side that's right here, that's dashed, that belongs to the right triangle, this is 21. And this one right here is 20.
That one is 21.
Right, so this one's 21. So now you're back to the same formula that we used. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You're trying to figure out what is C squared, or what is C. So now you already know this one is 441, right? What is the 20 times 20? This is another one you can memorize.
400.
400.
400.
Yes, so you already know 441 plus 400. This is the number of the two sides, 841.
What number is Missy?
So hopefully you saw that on my screen, right? Did everybody see that? Or did I click too fast? So you got 841 because you already knew the side squared. You already know that, oh, this was the, I understand that this was a 21 times 21 was 441. I know 20 times 20 is 400. So what I'm really doing in my calculator is saying, what is the square root of 841? So you have A, 13, B is 20, C is 20.5, and D is 29.
D.
D, exactly, right? So when you do the square root of 841, you get 29.
D.
Yes, so you're picking out D. So the reason why we're looking at these problems, and we just did 2 of them really quickly, is because some of them are the 2-step or 3-step style. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bring you back up so far. Does anybody have a question so far about the 2 that we did? So now this is an example. I thought that this page was a good example because it's going to show you that you might need to understand the area in order to do the question that they're actually asking you, right? So this is where sometimes one question, they know that you understand multiple points in geometry in order to get the question right. If you scroll down, you can do more of these, of course, if you want, and ask me any question. Some of these that are short answer are saying, determine the missing length. Explain how you found your answer. What you're doing is looking at, this is the right angle again. This one must be the hypotenuse. So one of these is the A or the B, whichever one you want it to be. So, bless you. When you're doing any of the ones that are short answer, it's just to make sure that you can explain it. Now, this comes in handy for the ones that we saw, like why did this student get this right? Or why did this student get this wrong? Because you're able to explain how you are going to use the formulas. But if you move all the way down, this document, it gives you the answers. So here, the one we did was, the answer was B that we got. And then number 6, the answer was D that we got, right? So it's telling you here that you're applying it, you're doing some, you understand the formula or knowledge about the formula, you're thinking about it. So this one, they're just saying the objective is to think about it because you also had to use the square. But then as you go down to the short answer, they're giving you an example of what you could have said. So this is the answer for number 11. And it says, I used the Pythagorean theorem and substituted 25 for B and 33 for C. I squared both numbers and subtracted 625 from both sides. I took the square root to get A, and then I rounded to 22. So this kind of short example, when you get to the short answer ones, you can check yourself to see if you wrote something that is similar to what they have as the answer, because this could be the kind of question where maybe they didn't subtract from both sides. Or maybe the person didn't round up, they rounded down, right? So it's really good for you to be able to explain what you're doing in step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, because those are the kinds of things that will help you if you get the kind of problem where you're catching someone's mistake, where you're like, okay, great, I used the theorem, I substituted, right? I subtracted, but maybe the person didn't round. So this is where you're able to not just pick the multiple choice, but see what the example would be. So let's see. Okay, so now what I want to do is answer your questions. So let me stop sharing the screen. You didn't have any questions about those two, but if you want, you can do a couple of other ones and you can skip around. Like we said, the first one looks very much like the ones that are on Math is Fun already. So if you think it's already like what you've done on Aztec or Math is Fun, then you don't have to do it again, right? This is just for extra practice like we've done in the classroom. So let's take a look at one more. Okay, so number 3. This one says, what is the area of square C? So what do you need to find the area of this square? How do you find the area of a square?
We have to
A and B.
A squared.
Well, it's just if you knew all the side lengths, how would you find the area of C?
Abby?
Add A and B.
Nope.
No.
So just looking at the C by itself, how do you find the area of a square?
Divided by
Multiplying.
Square root, right?
What square root?
Just any old square, you multiply the side by itself, or length times width. Is everybody following that?
Yeah.
So again, what you could do if you're doing index cards or something like that to study, you can do this. Area equals A squared, or S squared, sometimes they put for side. Or like, I think Kaven, that might've been your voice earlier, you could just say length times the width, right? But for a square, it's important to understand that you only need one side length because all the side lengths are the same. So if you think length times width, you don't need 2 different numbers. You need the one side length squared, right? So the reason why I'm saying this is because it's important to understand the question. It's saying, what is the area of C? In order to get the area of C, you need to figure out the hypotenuse. So now this is telling you, What'd you say?
We 2 times of the B, right? The 28.
28 times 28.
Yeah,
Yes. And then
2 times
35 times
28.
35.
yeah, that's what. Yeah.
So let's see in the calculator. $35 times 35 is 1225. 28.
28 is 784. 784.
1225.
So you add them together.
2009.
Let's see if I'm right.
Oh, no.
No, you put the name wrong.
Yeah, I got 2009. I got 784. 1225.
Which one are we doing? C. Let's see. I must have typed something wrong.
You
Oh, okay,
did.
yeah. I just got the side length. So now here,
Let's see.
I didn't finish. So the answer is C. For some, let me clear my calculator. Mine is not showing on the calculator. I typed the wrong thing.
Oh.
But 35, I think our time is going to run out soon. 35 times 35 is what I should have had in my calculator. So here's
Yeah, you typed
35,
that.
Yeah,
28.
the hypotenuse is 4482.
Yeah,
So,
add one.
Okay.
So it could be 45. So you just like
What was it? 44?
82. But I think they rounded to 45 because of the answer. Because I got 2008.83.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
2008.83. So they're not saying to round, but it makes sense, right? That's the closest one. So now where I had stopped the first time was 87. That's why this answer is there, because I didn't finish the problem. So if I had just stopped at the hypotenuse, right, that's not the question. So this is where you have to, the reason why we started with how do you find the area of a square? Because you want to write that down on your scrap paper, that your final answer is whatever the hypotenuse is times itself, so that you make sure you're answering the real question. If you're just moving, because there's a lot that you could be using the Pythagorean theorem for, where if you just find the hypotenuse, that's one answer, right? That would be what is the length of the hypotenuse, like the one we just did, or what is C? But because the question is what is the area of the whole square of C, you have to multiply it by itself, or do that A equals S squared. And then again, they're not telling you to round, but that's the answer that's the closest. So then that would be the one that you pick out. So did anybody want to do it? Well, actually, let's see. So our time is running out for the class, but if you want to work on this, this is another thing that is, of course, not, I can't track you on. So I am going to send you the tracker in a few minutes, because I'm going to just sit here and finish it. So if you want to continue working on this and you say, hey, I spent an extra 30 minutes doing some Pythagorean theorem problems, then you can just write that down on the tracker. If you haven't, I haven't added anything new to Math is Fun Expectations or to Khan Academy. So if you want to do the Math is Fun quiz, if you didn't do it yesterday or the day before, or you want to still work through the videos on Khan Academy, that is fine as well. So we didn't have time to talk about the New York Times article. So what we're going to do is just basically go over the majority of it tomorrow, just to keep talking about, you know, current events. And then what I'm saying is for math, we are, unless anybody has any questions and you text me like you want to do one of these together, we're going to move to the rest of the quadrilaterals. So that would have been parallelogram that we skipped over and trapezoid for Thursday and Friday. So I'm thinking maybe like Monday, I'll try to find some place where we can do the summary. But by Monday, we'll be done with quadrilaterals and triangles. So the last two-dimensional shape that we have is the circle, which you may have already seen if you're doing Aztec because they're just doing them, you know, in a different order. But our goal is going to be to get through quadrilaterals this week and do circles maybe Monday and Tuesday, because we're going to do the outside border and we're going to do the area. So then somewhere around Wednesday, we want to do all of the flat shapes kind of review. And
Can I
then
say
Thursday,
something?
what'd you say?
Just sure the answer is D.
For which one?
The one we just did.
C.
You'll see.
It was C.
Yes.
Oh. I'm sorry for cutting in, but
No problem. That's what we're here for, right? So if you do want to do one of these, or, you know, because there's a lot, I think there's like 16 of them. If you look through and there's a style that you think is a more complicated one that you want to try out, even if you think it's a benefit to do it for the class, then we can do that. So I'm just saying a estimate again, that maybe by like Wednesday, Thursday of next week, we'll be on the three-dimensional or moving towards the idea of adding volume. So that's the second week of April. So around the third week of April, we'll be in the word problems and stuff like that. So we're kind of like, I think we can make it through this block in the next couple of weeks while we're out. So we could do maybe something like graphing the shapes, or get one more topic in if everyone's feeling comfortable. So the way that I'm going to try to find this is to maybe find the task exercise book online and see if we can just keep using the things that we were using in class. That way we can get it from the task, you know, company, and see that we're on the same page with doing it with all these other websites. So that's my goal, is to try to find that in the next couple of days and see, so we can do it in a way that we've been familiar doing it, and you can make sure you know all the formulas. But I would suggest, if you haven't made the index cards, or even if you just want to, you know, if you don't have index cards, you can just make them on sheets of paper, like fold a piece of paper 4 times, but just to find a way to study the shape, the rules of the shape, and study the formulas, so that when something's saying what is the area of a square or what is the internal angle, you're automatically falling back on the rules of the shape. Like the squares all equal size, the triangle, there should be three lengths. You know, the rectangle, I know that it's length times width because there's 2 different lengths. So that you want to be strong in is understanding the shape and the rule of the shape and how it applies to the perimeter and the area so far. So any questions?
can you explain how you get C?
I can, but I think what we can do is come back on to the call, okay? So I'm gonna say goodbye for everyone, and then if you want to come back onto the call, we can come back on together, because soon it's gonna cut us off anyway. The maximum time is only 40 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll just open up the call again, and if you wanna come back on, you can, okay? So I'll be looking for you, James. All right, so I'm just gonna say goodbye to everybody. If you wanna keep working on the page, you can work on the page. And then if you wanna come back on, you can. If you have any questions for tomorrow, or even right now, send me a text message or type it into the chat. Okay? All right, so it was great to see you.
Thank you.
I will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye.